Breaking football news from you, and it comes from Arsenal. They've just confirmed the signing of Spain international Martin Zubimendi from Real Sociedad. Now, our understanding is the club met Zubimendi's £51 million release clause. The club say he signed a long-term contract. Now, we understand that work on the deal started last summer when Arsenal knew Jorginho and Thomas Partey were going into the final year of their contracts and could possibly leave. Zubimendi was identified by the club as their #1 target. Arsenal approached Real Sociedad about signing both Mikel Merino and Zubimendi last summer, but Real Sociedad didn't want to lose both players in the same window. Arsenal presented a solution that Merino joined in 2024 and Zubimendi in 2025. Mikel Arteta's role in convincing Zubimendi to wait another year and join Arsenal was significant. It's understood that Arteta and Zubimendi created a strong and instant connection and was crucial in making him feel at ease to move outside Spain. Merino also played a role. He spoke to Zubimendi about Arsenal as well. Well, those talks last summer did prove pivotal. Arsenal effectively signed a pre-agreement then, and the transfer was fully agreed back in March. Well, that was especially important as Real Madrid expressed a strong interest in June following Xabi Alonso's arrival as manager. Well, we had a look at the numbers and wanted to see how Zubimendi's numbers compared to Arsenal's midfielders last season. And as you can see, his pass completion rate was a bit lower than Declan Rice, Thomas Partey and Jorginho's. But here is perhaps the reason why. His percentage of passes forward was considerably higher than those three players I mentioned. So we could see Arsenal perhaps moving the ball forward a little more quicker next season. And Zubimendi was amongst the top 20 players in La Liga for some key stats that you'd look for in a central midfielder, in particular the one we've highlighted. He's ranked third for possession won in the middle third of the pitch.
McAdam, Mark, there is only one place to start. Yeah. Arsenal search for a striker. How close are they to getting it over the line?
It feels like, for the first time in a number of windows, Arsenal fans are finally going to get to see the magic number 9 walk through the door at the Emirates. It's been the position that they've been coveting. It's the position they've been desperate for the club to go and action. And it feels like, finally, we can start to talk about this deal getting closer. Now, how close is the question? We know that Arsenal are pushing hard and they are in advanced talks at the moment. There's been no club-to-club agreement between Sporting and Arsenal, but the conversation continues between the two football clubs. There are some reports out there suggesting that Viktor Gyokeres has told his friends, yeah, I'm only interested in Arsenal. Arsenal's a team for me, Arsenal's a team I want, and that he's also made that quite clear to the hierarchy at Sporting Lisbon. Sporting, as far as they're concerned, I guess, Dharmesh, they know they've pretty much lost the player. He's played as many games as he's going to play at Lisbon, and what an incredible 2 years it's been. 97 goals in 102 appearances. It is simply phenomenal, hence why now we're talking about this potential move. Maybe that celebration will be seen in the Premier League not too far away.
Yeah, just to add to that, Mark, Arsenal thought to be encouraged by the player's desire to join. Personal terms not expected to be a problem, but in a fresh development, Sporting have given Gyökeres permission to delay his return for pre-season. Now, we know pre-season gets underway for a lot of clubs, not only in the Premier League, but around Europe tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's a week after some of his teammates. That's when he was due back. So some of them have actually gone back a week ago, but he's now been given until Friday as these talks with Arsenal progress. And there is no certainty, given what you've just been saying, that he's going to return at all. Now, you did say, despite these talks being advanced, there's no club-to-club agreement just yet. What is it going to take for there to be this club-to-club agreement?
Well, this feels like a little bit of a grey area. Now, normally when we go into transfer negotiations and we're talking about them, we've got a bit of an idea about what the price is the selling club are looking for. Normally it's the first question you'll ask your contacts. OK, fine, but how much is it going to cost to get this deal done? Now, this is where it gets a little bit confusing, because there were rumoured reports that when Viktor Gyökeres went to Sporting Lisbon from Championship side Coventry. There was a release clause inserted into that contract that was €100 million, which is around £80 million. Now, he's 27 years old, and even the president of Sporting, Federico Varandas, has come out and said, look, we know we're not going to get £80 million for a 27-year-old striker. No one from Portugal is going to leave for that kind of money. So therefore, we have to be sensible, and we have to understand that actually, if we're going to recoup back some of the cash we invested and get this kind of sum into the club, we're going to have to soften our approach on this rumoured release clause. Now, there were suggestions it was around £59 million.
Yeah, because there was that rumour, wasn't there, that Viktor Gyokeres had some sort of agreement with Sporting that he could leave for that amount of money.
Yeah, but gentlemen's agreements in football, rarely do they ever seem to work out. You hear about these things, and you've probably heard about them a number of times over the years between certain players and certain owners, but very often the agreement is always not quite on the same page. Now, we did say that we understood it to be 59 million. However, Federico Varandas has come out and said there's absolutely no chance that Viktor Gyökeres will be leaving for £59 million in this window. So between 80 million, the release clause, and 59 million, the rumoured release clause, you'd imagine the fee that Arsenal would have to pay will be somewhere in between. You get that feeling that that's where they're going to be. It's going to be probably around 70 million, whether that's inclusive of add-ons or plus some add-ons. It's going to have to be that kind of figure to get Viktor Gyökeres out of Sporting Lisbon and into North London.
Look, we have been speaking about this very topic for so many transfer windows, haven't we? It has been a primary focus for Arsenal to bring in a striker in this transfer window. They have explored the conditions of a deal for a number of players, most notably RB Leipzig's Benjamin Sesko. But when you look at those two players, they're different profiles and different ages, aren't they? Viktor Gyökeres, you could argue, more of the finished article. Does Benjamin Sesko perhaps have the higher ceiling? But what we're hearing now is that the focus seems to be edging towards Viktor Gyökeres as opposed to Sesko.
It felt like they had two names on their list. Now, there probably would have been 5 or 6. Arsenal do a lot of due diligence. They like to scour the market, and they know that they have to sign top quality. But it always felt like from the start of this window, they had 2 players in mind for that number 9 position. Like you say, Benjamin Sesko, someone that's been in the RB group for a number of seasons and has been watched at times by Real Madrid. You know, he's been on the radar of a number of the big European clubs as they look to strengthen through the middle. It's probably safe to say his development and trajectory hasn't been as progressive as a lot of the clubs expected, but he's still a talented player. But he's 22 years old and probably not quite Premier League ready just yet. But like you rightly say, probably will be in time. Whereas Viktor Gyökeres absolutely is Premier League ready in my mind. He's like an oven-ready product. He's just scored 97 goals in 102 appearances. I think the biggest thing that he'll bring that perhaps other players won't is the physicality. He understands the Premier League. He understands English football. I first came across him when he was a young player at Brighton. Didn't play a great deal of first-team matches. Was given his debut by Chris Hughton, but then went out on loan. And it was where he was on loan at Coventry where he really excelled. And under Mark Robins, developed into that ruthless centre-forward, someone that could do everything you'd want from a number 9. And not only score and finish, but he could create his own goals as well. He'd drop into little pockets of space. He'd come into his own half at times, but he'd be prepared to get out wide. He'd be prepared to do the dirty work. And then he had the ability to finish with ease, and not just simple finishes. You know, he'd stick it in the bottom corner, he'd stick it in the top corner. He was good aerially. He had everything. And this is where I think this potential deal certainly feels like it could be the right one, and the one that Arsenal fans are crying out for.
Oven ready, I like that. It looks like Arsenal are cooking.
I sound like Boris Johnson, don't I? I don't know if that's a good thing.
Not quite sure how to follow that one. But listen, we've heard the fans, we've seen social media. Now, how much attention you should pay to social media, I don't know. But it has been the theme. The fans have been baying and asking and demanding that Arsenal sign a striker. The fact that Arsenal have taken their time over the past few windows and done due diligence over a number of transfer windows, including in January when they were looking at both Sesko and Gyökeres, and in this transfer window with both of those players as well. Does that kind of highlight how how absolutely vital it is that Arsenal get this right and the importance of this decision with, in particular, this position?
It's probably the most difficult position to recruit for. And you speak to sporting directors up and down the country, across Europe and in the Premier League, and what's the one thing they say that is the difficult thing to find?
Number 9.
Number 9. And it's also the most expensive as well. So you have to get it right. If you're spending 50, 60, 70, 80, 100 million in Harry Kane's case on that number 9, he has to be able to come into the club and develop almost straight away and have an impact on that first team. This is the most challenging position to recruit for. And for a team like Arsenal, you're not trying to find a striker that will get you 15 goals and get you in the top 4. You're trying to find a striker that will get you 25 plus goals and someone that will spearhead you to the Premier League title, spearhead you to the Champions League, go and win domestic cups as well. You have got to be the full package, the whole package, and nothing less. It's quite interesting, something you mentioned there. It feels like this is a slight deviation from Arsenal's transfer policy maybe of a few years ago. You go back to the summer of 21-22, where they were signing players like Ben White, like Aaron Ramsdale, Martin Odegaard. The average age of the players they were signing during that particular summer was 22 years old. Suddenly, Andrea Berta comes into the football club with his experience in La Liga, new relationship with Mikel Arteta, and in his final 2 seasons at Atletico, the average age of the players he was signing was 26 and 27. And when you start to look at what Arsenal are doing, Kepa at 30, Zubimendi at 26, Viktor Gyokeres, should they get the deal done, he's 27, Eberechi Eze as well, 27. It feels like this is a slight shift. But what you get from these players that are more experienced, a little bit older, are products that are ready to go now. This is not a project where we're building a team for maybe 3 or 4 years' time. This is a project that Mikel Arteta would say, we are ready to hit the ground now and go and win the Premier League.
I guess with every transfer, not just big money ones potentially like Gyökeres would be, comes with it an element of risk. I just want to have a look at this graphic. It is the power rankings of leagues. According to Opta League rankings, it is harder to score goals in the Championship than it is in the Portuguese league. Now, Gyökeres, we do know, has scored plenty of goals in the Championship as well. But more generally, should Arsenal fans have any concerns, given he has been so prolific, but in a league that is widely considered to be outside the top 5 European leagues?
I think Viktor Gyokeres brings something that perhaps a number of other European players don't bring, and that's experience of the English game, both at Brighton, both at Coventry. He had a loan spell as well that didn't work out particularly well, but he understands the rigours of playing English football. So I think, first of all, you've got someone that understands the country. You speak to so many people. How many times do they say, well, we like a lot of players in Europe, but not all of them have got the ability to adapt to life in England. You've got to move across countries. You've got to learn a new language. You've got to let your family settle. You've got to find a home and a place where you feel comfortable. And then you've got to start playing your best football on the pitch, whereas Arsenal fans won't have that concern. The Arsenal hierarchy won't have that concern. Viktor Gyokeres has lived in England before, so he knows what that's like. So I don't think that will be an issue. The fact that he's a physical striker as well. I don't want to say he's going to do the same sort of things as Erling Haaland, but I feel like some of his characteristics are very similar. I feel like he has that ability to come into the Premier League, come into Arsenal, should the deal get done, and really have a huge impact. And you could almost see within the first 6 or 7 games of Arsenal season, Viktor Gyökeres has got 6 or 7 goals, and people go, Arsenal, why didn't you go and get this player or get this type of player 2 or 3 winters ago? Because we might have a few more bits of silverware in the cabinet. But I don't have any question marks about his ability, his goal scoring, or his physicality. I think he's the perfect product for Arsenal right now, and I could see him really fitting seamlessly into that side.
Is exclusive to us, and I think Liverpool fans will be quite happy about it because the club have rejected an approach from Bayern Munich for Luis Diaz. More than that, though, Bayern's sporting director, who's Max Eberl, has been told that the player is not for sale, and since then there's been no further discussions.
And it's actually the second time, if you remember, this summer that Liverpool have taken this stance. They said the same to Barcelona earlier on in the window when they showed interest in Luis Diaz. The word is Liverpool will not entertain any approaches for the Colombian. Their message is clear that he is not available for sale.
Yeah, and what Liverpool are saying is that they are prioritising the current squad, and their stance at the moment on Diaz will not change. They say his contribution is vital to the coming season. So this isn't just this summer. They want Luis Diaz to stay long term, and they've been quite unequivocal there, saying that he is not for sale. Bayern Munich, the latest club to come in for him. However, he's not going.
Very key players who could be on their way out. Give us the lowdown on these, please.
£150 million worth of talent right there in front of us. Now, we know that Jadon Sancho, on loan at Chelsea last year, into the final year of his contract, huge investment for Manchester United, upwards of £70 million. It's expected he'll depart Old Trafford at some stage this summer, but what will they get for him? And of course, the big stumbling block is he's on huge wages. Anthony, Real Betis on loan. Andy well got to the Europa Conference League final, still has a couple of years left on his Manchester United contract. Another big investment from Manchester United of 80 million. What will they claw back from him? Maybe 30, maybe 40 at a push, but we know that sides in La Liga don't have the type of funds that they do in Saudi Arabia or the Premier League. Marcus Rashford, another big hitter, 3 years left on his Old Trafford deal. He's spoken publicly about his desire to go and play in the Champions League, which limits his options in England. We know that there are interested sides in Europe. He'd desperately love to go and play for Barcelona, but whether or not that will happen, it feels unlikely at this stage. Manchester United would have to pay a big chunk of his wages. And of course, he would have to find the right club that could satisfy his desires and needs. And Alejandro Garnacho, all of the noise really coming from him and his camp. Manchester United undecided about what they're doing with him. He's made noises he'd like to leave. Of course, a lot of value there in that player. But when you look at these four, huge potential income there for Manchester United. And obviously that could be used to refund this build. Sure.
Transfer news from Chelsea, who have now signed forward Joao Pedro from Brighton in a deal worth up to £60 million. The 23-year-old has agreed a 7-year contract with Chelsea after flying out to the USA for his medical. He joins up with his new Chelsea teammates for the Club World Cup. He will be available to play. Their next match is against Palmeiras in the quarterfinals on Saturday, in the early hours of Saturday. So he could even feature in that. Newcastle had also tried to sign Pedro. They saw a £50 million bid knocked back because he always wanted to join Chelsea. The Brazil international's transfer takes Chelsea's spend on Brighton players, would you believe it or not, to £260 million since 2022. He follows former Brighton players Marc Cucurella, Robert Sanchez and Moises Caicedo in making the move to West London. He will be available, as I mentioned there, for the Club World Cup. We got some news from Brighton as well here, because Fabian Herzler, the head coach, has said this is a good move for all parties. It's an excellent deal for the club and a good return on a significant investment in an area of the pitch where we have a lot of competition and already well served in terms of our attacking talent. It's also an exciting move for Joao. Gives him the opportunity to play in Champions League football this coming season, and he will, of course, be keen to cement his position in the Brazil team ahead of the World Cup next summer. Joao has given us some wonderful moments during my time and before I came to the club. So on behalf of everyone, I would like to thank him for his service over the past 2 seasons, and we wish him the best for the future. So big news. Joao Pedro has been signed by Chelsea in a deal worth up to £60 million. And actually, it's on an 8-year contract. So Joao Pedro, that is done. He is going to Stamford Bridge and he's out in America, ready to play in the Club World Cup for his new club, which is Chelsea.
On Manchester United's pursuit of Bryan Mbeumo, Mark McAdam joins me once again. And Mark, we know that Manchester United want to sign Mbeumo this summer. What is the latest?
It's been one of the sagas of the summer so far, hasn't it? Manchester United remain hopeful of concluding a deal for Bryan Mbeumo following the Brentford sporting director's comments yesterday. Phil Giles said a deal is there to be done, but only if it's right for the club, and Mbeumo is happy to stay, crucially, if nothing is agreed. Manchester United are working on a potential new offer, with their most recent one worth £62.5 million, which was made up of an initial £55 million plus £7.5 in add-ons. Not enough for Brentford. They want in excess of £65 million for the Cameroon forward, with most of it, if not all of it, guaranteed. So that's the very latest on the Bryan Mbeumo situation.
You said it's a saga, one that will keep on going, but thank you for bringing up to speed with that for now. What about elsewhere in the club? Also want to sign a striker?
Yeah, this is a rebrand, a rebuild. Ruben Amorim really putting his DNA on this Manchester United attack over the course of this summer. It's going to be an expensive rebuild as well. We know that Matheus Cunha is in, Bryan Mbeumo we've just explained there. We know that there is interest in signing a new number 9 at Old Trafford. One of the players on their radar. We know there has been links with Viktor Gyokeres and Benjamin Sesko. Another player of interest, the 29-year-old at Aston Villa, Ollie Watkins. Manchester United are exploring a potential deal for someone who has 3 years left on their Villa contract. This will have no effect on Rasmus Højlund and what they decide to do with him or his future. But as of yet, it's important to point out there has been no club-to-club contact between Villa and Manchester United. And of course, this will be funded by a number of players leaving Old Trafford this summer as well. But this is certainly one to keep an eye on as Manchester United look to strengthen right through the middle.
And Victor Osimhen has been linked with a move to Old Trafford this summer. How likely is that one looking?
Well, Manchester United have been interested in number 9. We know that Victor Osimhen has been on the radar of a number of Premier League sides over the course of the last couple of years, really. He's been one of those players scoring goals in Europe. Things haven't worked out at Napoli. Spent last season on loan at Galatasaray, where he scored 26 goals in 30 league games. He got 6 goals in 7 appearances in the Europa League as well. There has been a persistent link with Saudi Arabia. One other thing coming from our Sky colleagues in Italy is that Juventus are considering making an offer to Napoli for the 26-year-old. That's if they get confirmation from his representatives that he would be willing to go to Juventus. If he gets a green light, then they will approach Napoli for club-to-club talks about potentially doing a deal. Be interesting to see if that sparks any interest from Premier League sides, because we know there are a number of teams, Arsenal in the market for number 9, Chelsea possibly in the market for number 9, depending on what happens with Nicholas Jackson. We know that Manchester United are in the market for number 9, Liverpool possibly, Newcastle possibly. Now, the thing about Victor Osimhen, big player, big personality, big wages. And that may be a stumbling block for some Premier League sides. But it's always worth keeping an eye on his situation.
Yeah, there's a player that seems to be being linked with a number of clubs, Mohamed Kudus. Plenty of interest in him. What's the latest? Yeah,
another player that's going to be probably spoken about most days on the transfer show. We'll be talking about Mohamed Kudus for some time. West Ham open to selling him, providing the valuation is met. We know that there is interest in the 24-year-old from Spurs. Spurs actually want a versatile forward threat, someone who can play in multiple positions, left, right, through the middle as a false 9, or potentially as a 10. Mohamed Kudus definitely ticks those boxes. They were interested in Bryan Mbeumo. They were interested in Eber Eze as well. We also know that Newcastle have him on their list, and Chelsea are also interested in Kudus as well, despite already making a number of signings in those advanced positions. So, yeah, one to keep an eye on, that's for sure.
Sporting Director Phil Giles, who's given an update on the future of Manchester United target Bryan Mbeumo and the captain Christian Norgard, who's closing in on that move to Arsenal. This just into us.
How closer are we to knowing the future of Bryan Mbeumo? He's been an incredible player for the club, but can you give us any updates on him?
There's significant interest in Bryan. I think it's been documented and publicised about his current preference. I think, from what I understand, he's also, if needs be, happy to stay at Brentford next year as well. So listen, let's see on that. I think our position is he had an unbelievable season last year. We expected interest in him. If that deal's right, there's a deal to do. If it's not, then he'll stay.
You mentioned there that they're interested in Brian leaving, but also there's been conversations that he could stay as well.
Yeah, I mean, we've spoken to Brian, his representatives. It's not a given that he's going to depart this summer. There is interest. You know, he had a great season last season, so it's inevitable we'll be interested in him. If we get the right offer, then you know, there's potentially a deal to be done, but there's only so much we can say right now on that.
Significantly as well, Christian Norgard could be joining Arsenal. We know that is a deal in the pipeline. Where are we with that move?
So Arsenal approached us in the last 2 weeks about Christian. I've been seeing regularly there, spoken to Andrea Berta. As it stands at the minute, I think it's fair to say it's probably more likely to happen than not. But listen, again, you know, we have to go through the full process, tick all the boxes, and then we'll see at the end of it.
In that transfer, though, you'll be losing your captain, someone who's made such a great influence on the club and the team. How significant is it to probably be going into the next season without Christian Norgard?
He's been a fantastic player for us, unbelievable. I'm actually happy for him with the opportunity. He's kind of earned the opportunity to, at this age, you know, age 31, this stage of his career, to go and have an opportunity to go and try and win some trophies. It isn't done yet, obviously, but we're aware that if and when he does depart, we have some a leadership void to fill. Also thinking about Ben Mee, who also left this summer as well. Mark Flecken was an experienced goalkeeper, so you know, we're aware of the squad and the blend of experiences that we have in the squad, and we'll look to cover it.
Yeah, some interesting comments there from Giles. Then James Savundra joins me on set now. Look, he hinted that Mbeumo only wants United, but is happy to stay at Brentford if the deal can't be agreed. So where are we with the deal then?
That was really interesting, saying that he'll be happy to stay. I think it seems unlikely that Brian Mbeumo will be a Brentford player, even by the time the players return for pre-season, just simply because of how close Brentford and Manchester United are right now. There was a bid that went in on Friday, which was rejected by Brentford. That was worth up to £62.5 million. The previous bid was £55 million, with £45 million up front, £10 million in add-ons. We understand Brentford want in excess of £60 million, and they want as much of that money guaranteed as possible. I think ideally they want to see a similar fee to what Manchester United paid for Matheus Cunha, which was £62.5 million. That was a release clause that Manchester United triggered. So we're getting very close right now. I think Brentford just want more money guaranteed up front, and as Phil Giles was saying there, it's something we've been reporting over the course of the last few days. There has been plenty of interest in Brian Mbeumo, but he wants to join Manchester United. I do think, with the clubs remaining in talks, that we are getting very, very close to them having an agreement.
It's a shame, isn't it? Because Brentford's players have done so well for them, but now they're all in the shop window and everyone's nicking them, basically, none more so than their captain, Christian Norgard. What's happening there? Is he going to Arsenal?
And it was really nice to hear Phil Giles talk about being really happy for Christian Norgard to get this opportunity to complete a move to Arsenal. 6 years of service, 2 years as captain as well. He's been a real leader for Brentford over the course of the last few years, because Brentford haven't just survived in the Premier League, they've thrived. They've been such an addition to the top flight over the course of the last 4 seasons. And he's expected to have a medical with Arsenal early this week. There's a deal in place worth up to £15 million, so £10 million up front. It'll be worth up to £15 million if all the add-ons are completed. And he's set to arrive as a replacement for Thomas Partey, whose contract expires today at Arsenal. Yeah,
which is something we were anticipating, isn't it? So where does their midfield stand then? Is that the rebuild almost done?
It's almost complete. Martin Zubimendi will be confirmed as an Arsenal player as early as this week. Arsenal triggered that £51 million release clause in his contract at Real Sociedad. There's an agreement in place when it comes to a long-term contract. So you'll be in a situation where Christian Norgard and Martin Zubimendi, 99.9% chance that they'll be travelling with the squad to head to Singapore and Hong Kong for the club's pre-season tour. And what will be interesting is you'll have Christian Norgard in an Arsenal shirt coming up against Thomas Frank, who will be managing Tottenham. Things move so quickly in football, and Arsenal move quickly in terms of their rebuild as well, because Jorginho out of contract this summer, Thomas Partey out of contract. Those two players very quickly being replaced by Christian Norgard and Martin Zubimendi.
So where else do they need to strengthen, or where do they want to strengthen, should we say, Arsenal?
Well, they're remaining talks with Valencia around the signing of the centre-back, Christian Mosquera, but clearly the main priority in this transfer window will be signing a striker. We know they're looking for a new winger and a striker. In terms of winger, we spoke last Friday about Eberechi Eze being a player of real interest. He's of interest to so many clubs in the Premier League and in the Champions League because he is such an incredible player. He has a release clause in his contract, £60 million release clause, which you think is a really good deal if a club wants to get that done this summer. And they've explored the conditions of that deal. And also, Rodrigo at Real Madrid is a player of real interest as well when it comes to wide players. I think they're really happy with what they've got in terms of the wide options. But I think when you look at Gabriel Martinelli's output over the course of the last 2 years, it's not been as good as it was in the previous season before that. So I think they just want to improve in every single area of the pitch. And when it comes to striker, there's still no indication as to who is their front runner, who is the main target. But I think we can safely say it's down to two in the form of Benjamin Sesko and Viktor Gyökeres. So there is players there of interest to Arsenal. Initial talks have taken place. But I think now they've sorted out the issue with midfield. They've got that second choice goalkeeper in place. Kepa could be announced any day now. Midfield's in place. Now it's about getting these attacking players that can score them the goals to win that Premier League title at last.
Knocked out of the Club World Cup. Kaveh Solikol, our chief correspondent, is there for us. And Kaveh, Manchester City, up until a couple of hours ago, it looked fairly good in this tournament. What on earth happened out there?
Well, it was an absolutely extraordinary game. A game that Manchester City really should have won. I think they had the players to win the game, but I'm not sure they had the right tactics or the right strategy. And they played into Al Hilal's hands, because the way Al Hilal want to play a game when they're facing a side as good as Manchester City is to defend deep and hit their opponents on the break. And that is exactly what they did, and they're devastating on the break. City basically spent the whole game camped outside Al Hilal's penalty area, and when they were unable to break through, Al Hilal basically hit them on the break. And you have to say, at the end of the day, Al Hilal deserved their victory. It was an absolute masterclass in attacking football from them, and also a masterclass in defending. And I think it really tells you that Saudi Arabian football is perhaps a little better than people give it credit for. When we talk about Saudi Arabian football, we always talk about money, we always talk about transfers, we always talk about the massive wages that are on offer there as well. But I do think that something is happening in Saudi Arabia. Their football is developing fast, and Al Hilal so far in this tournament have been unbeaten. And they've come up against sides like Real Madrid. They've beaten Manchester City tonight. And I think now there's a chance that they could make it all the way to the final. Because if you look at the draw, their next game is against Fluminense of Brazil here in Orlando. And then they will face either Chelsea or Palmeiras. And if they get past either of those two sides, then they will be in the final in New York, New Jersey.
Late night out there for you, isn't it, Kaveh? Very early in the morning. We know that these post-match interviews take a little bit of time to come through, don't they? So how did Pep Guardiola and his players seem afterwards?
Well, Pep Guardiola was shell-shocked in his news conference. He basically said, we were here to win this tournament. We desperately wanted to win the tournament. We are the defending world champions. We weren't in the US for a holiday. This was not a pre-season training camp. We were taking this competition very, very seriously. And it just looked like Pep Guardiola didn't have an answer to the way Al Hilal were playing. He made lots of substitutions, made lots of changes. Rodri came on, then he went off. Phil Foden came on, Cherki came on, Mamouche came on, but still the pattern of the game didn't change. Perhaps what Manchester City needed to do is let Al Hilal have the ball or defend a little bit deeper, because the whole game, exactly the same thing was happening. Manchester City had the ball, they weren't able to break through, and Al Hilal would hit them on the break. So Pep Guardiola was shell-shocked. He was trying to sort of work out what had happened. And as for the players, we spoke to Bernardo Silva afterwards, and you could tell from his expression, you could tell from the way he was talking that he was very, very frustrated about the way the game had panned out. He simply could not understand why City could not get to grips with the way Al Hilal were counter-attacking. And he was also very upset about the fact that City had been knocked out of this tournament. He made it very clear. He said, look, this feels on par with being knocked out of the Champions League. There is no silver lining to this. We are not happy that we're leaving this tournament early and we'll be going on holiday and we need a rest and we need to recharge our batteries. Far from it. He said, we were here in the US to win this tournament, to defend our title as world champions, and we fell short. We simply weren't good enough, and Al Hilal were better than us on the night.
Kaveh, you touched on it a little bit earlier, you know, where Saudi Arabian football sits, what this does. I mean, only a couple of days ago, Cristiano Ronaldo saying, you know, you've all underestimated how good this league is. So can you just put this into a little bit of context for us?
I think it's probably the best result in the history of Asian club football. I don't think it's the best result in the history of Asian football because if you go back a couple of years to the World Cup in Qatar in 2022, Saudi Arabia beat Argentina, who ended up winning that World Cup. So most Saudi Arabian football supporters you would speak to would say that is the best result ever in the history of Saudi Arabian football. But when it comes to club football, I think this comes very, very close to that win for Saudi Arabia against Argentina. Al Hilal are arguably the biggest club in Saudi Arabia. Their fans would tell you that they have more supporters than any other side in Saudi Arabia. And speaking to some of the Saudi journalists who are here in the US, they are telling me that people in Saudi Arabia are going crazy for this Club World Cup. They know that the tournament has its critics, especially in Europe, but they have embraced it. And for them, it's something very, very special for a team from Asia to play a side like Manchester City, not in a friendly, but in a competitive game. And make no mistake, this was a very, very competitive game. You could tell by the way the players were celebrating the goals. Even when City took an early lead, their players were celebrating like they'd scored a winner in a Premier League game. It means a lot to them. And of course, the way Al Hilal were celebrating their goals tells you all you need to know about how important this is for them. There were extraordinary scenes at the end of the game, actually, because City players, a lot of them sank to their knees in despair, whereas a lot of the Al Hilal players were sinking to their knees in disbelief. And the president of the club was waiting for them on the touchline. It took about half an hour for all their players to leave the pitch. But make no mistake, this is a very, very special night for Saudi Arabian football. And one of their players, the midfielder, Sergei Milenkovic-Savic, we were speaking to him afterwards, and he said to the journalists in the mix zone, he addressed us all, and he said to us, do you remember 2 years ago, you were all criticizing me for going to Saudi Arabia. You were saying that I was only going to Saudi Arabia for the money. Well, are you still criticizing me? Do you still think I only went for the money? Because look how we played tonight. We beat the world champions, Manchester City.
I know Kylian Mbappe obviously is pretty much a lock, but is there another position that Kylian can play? He can play on that left-hand side. If Vinny Jr.'s not performing, I think Garcia is throwing a little bit of an iron in the fire with Xabi Alonso here.
Mbappe out with an illness. Garcia steps right in. 4 matches, 3 goals. He's got shots. He's got contributions. He had an assist in the one match when he didn't score a goal. Has he been the biggest star, or at least surprise star, for Real Madrid in this competition?
Well, he's been the only player to directly contribute to a goal in all 4 of his matches so far in the FIFA Club World Cup. I think I'm very impressed with his movement. I'm very, very impressed with his timing. Obviously, his finishing has been pretty exceptional. I mentioned already he got an assist in that one game that he didn't score. But at 21 years old, and understandably, you've got to wait for that moment to get into the first team, Nate. You have to wait for an injury or an illness or whatever it may be for your chance to shine. And for him to really step up and be the hero in a game game like this. Now, many people will say Club World Cup and still trying to figure out what is this tournament. No. This is an opportunity for a youngster right now. This could have been a friendly game that he's putting out these types of performances. A new manager's just in charge of your team. He's put himself into contention. I don't care what the name is on the back of the jersey. It's the name on the front of this fabulous jersey that matters most. And this kid's put himself right to the forefront.
So we take a look at the starting 11 from Xabi Alonso, and it never seemed, you tell me if I'm wrong, it never seemed to me that the pieces perfectly fit last year for Real Madrid with all the star players that they had. New manager, going to try to find out how these pieces fit.
Yep.
His hand is forced because Mbappe's out with the illness. Is Garcia giving him something to think about when it comes to who's going to be a fixture in that attack for Real Madrid this year?
Well, he's not the only one. I think Garcia is also doing the same thing on the left-hand side. I mean, very solid performance from Huijsen at that backline. I thought he was exceptional. I thought Fede Valverde was once again absolutely brilliant. Let's just put this into perspective. Every single player right now for Real Madrid is on trial at that football club. If you want to play in the first 11, you've got to do the business not only in friendly games and pre-season. This is an opportunity for them right now in a major competition style to be able to showcase exactly who you are and what you mean to Real Madrid and what you can do for Xabi Alonso going forward. So to see a 21-year-old being the one that we're talking about coming after a game like this is pretty special. But this was a solid performance. There's more room for improvement clearly from Real Madrid. But I think it was a very job well done type of performance from Madrid. They should have scored more goals. Diogo was unbelievable in Juventus' goal. He was exceptional. But I do think that Real Madrid will be very pleasantly pleased with that type of a performance and a surprising match winner once again.
One player who we were commenting on, though, who maybe didn't have such a great match for Real Madrid was Vinicius Jr. He got himself in a lot of dangerous positions, but seemed a little indecisive from time to time. What did you make of his performance?
You know, I don't necessarily agree with the wordage there. I do agree with you that he can do more, he can do better. I think I would probably word it as he surprised me with his performance. Very active, very busy, wanted the ball. That's what I want to see from Vinicius Jr. He's an excellent player, he's an excellent dribbler. He gets himself into perfect positions to take shots. The one area surprised me was how poor his shots were and the fact that he didn't shoot more. Right. I mean, he was in prime position for goal after goal, for attempt after attempt, and sometimes was looking for the pass rather than the shot on goal himself. Maybe from the acute angle that he was coming in from that left-hand side. But I thought he was pretty good, and I thought he was actively involved in the game enough to say, you know what, I'm really showcasing myself also. I want to be a part of this project going forward for Real Madrid, and once again showcasing his true talent. But that one area that I think needs improvement from Vinny Jr. is just that finishing. He's a quality player. He can still have a major impact on this competition between now and obviously the end of it. But here's another thing I'm going to throw at you, Nate. Now, you let me know if I'm going crazy here. When you've got another youngster who's scoring goals, obviously Kylian Mbappe's left the opportunity for Gonzalo Garcia to come in and score goals. If he's scoring goals, how do you take him out the team? I know Kylian Mbappe obviously is pretty much a lock. But is there another position that Kylian can play? He can play on that left-hand side. If Vinny Jr.'s not performing, I think Garcia is throwing a little bit of an iron in the fire with Xabi Alonso here.
I think there are difficult decisions to make for this Real Madrid side, and it goes back to last year when it never seemed like the pieces up top were perfect fits. We know they're all tremendous players, and Mbappe's production was incredible last year. But something didn't seem quite right. And one of the things we've been talking about, I think a theme in this Club World Cup so far this year is there's the best 11 when it comes to the star players, but then there's the right 11 when it comes to constructing a team that fits together, where the players know their roles and they fit in the right places. And I think Xabi Alonso has some decisions to make in that regard. And that's another theme as well, Ian, is in terms of new coaches with new teams.
Yeah.
And how much can they use this Club World Cup to make some of those decisions right now? I can't imagine you bench Mbappe, right? But can you find a way for he and Garcia to be on the field at the same time in a way that complements one another?
I think you better maybe be careful with what you're saying, because what Xabi Alonso has proven to us in the past already in his young managerial career is that the hottest hand will play.
Right.
It's not necessarily the pressure he feels. Remember, this guy's been there and done it as a player. He's learning the trade as a coach now, understandably so. He's come through a remarkable time at Leverkusen in Germany where he had tremendous success and gained respect enough to get this type of a job. Why is he in this job in the first place? to make tough decisions. If players are not playing, and that's why I'm leaning towards the Vinny Jr. performance, you know, he needs to continue to be a bit more selfish as far as I'm concerned to stay in that team. Because if you've got a youngster like Garcia who's scoring goals, Kylian Mbappe can play on the left-hand side, Kylian Mbappe can float wherever he wants, and it gives Gonzalo Garcia an opportunity to go play wherever he wants. The formation was interesting. The three-back line obviously has been something that we know he is familiar with in Germany. Obviously, it was been changing as the competition's going on. But I'm very impressed once again. I mean, and sometimes you will see this from Real Madrid next campaign as well. From the end of this tournament to the next season, you will see him go from tactical formation, from a back three to a back four. He'll sometimes play with back twos and allow players to push forward and have that freedom to do so, especially if you give them too much respect. And I thought in stages of the game, Juve showed a little bit too much respect to them.
Well, let's talk about Juve for a moment here, because they did have a couple of big chances in the first half of the match that went begging. Kolo Muani had the best chance of all.
Scored.
Yeah, and it just goes over the bar. Igor Tudor's had more of a run-up to figure out what he wants to be with his team, because he's had them for a little while longer. I was a little surprised he didn't go to his bench a little sooner in the second half of this match. What did you make of Juve's performance in this game?
Yeah, I thought obviously they had their opportunities, the best one you pointed out there. I think when Kolo Muani went through, he was running at pace, then tried to chip the goalkeeper. Probably the wrong decision. It would have been better to just slot that one in the bottom corner. It was certainly open there for him. Excellent performance from Di Gregorio. He was outstanding on the day. You know, he made 10 saves in the game, which I think is not far away from Bono's performance against Manchester City for Al Hilal. So outstanding record numbers right there from Di Gregorio. And he kept him in the game because I think they had 11 shots on target overall. But I think it was a very interesting performance. Tudor's got this team performing well. They're difficult to beat. They're difficult to score goals against. But that firepower, that electricity, that confidence, that belief in the final third, just getting the job done is the biggest problem for me. But there was enough there to say that Juventus have got a lot to be looking forward to and a lot to be excited about for next season, that's for sure.
And I'm wondering how much credit we give Real Madrid because of the way they closed that game out as well. Once they took the lead, they just didn't give up much to Juventus the rest of the way. It was a different story for Manchester City going up against Al Hilal. A back-and-forth matchup.
And that is that Liverpool and Portugal forward Diogo Jota has died in a car accident in Spain.
Sky Sports News have received confirmation of Jota's death from the Guardia Civil in Zamora, where the accident took place. He was 28 years old. Jota has been playing in England since 2017 when he joined Wolves from Atletico Madrid, and he joined Liverpool in 2020, becoming a key player for the side, winning the FA Cup, League Cup and, of course, the Premier League last season.
Yeah, he had 49 caps for Portugal. He was part of that squad that won the Nations League this summer, just not very long ago at all. And even more, making this even more tragic, he was only married last month to the mother of his 3 children. So he leaves behind a newlywed wife and 3 children as well. In terms of his Premier League record, 190 league appearances. That's for Liverpool and for Wolves, 63 goals. And famously, he scored 8 minutes into his Liverpool debut back in 2020.
Yeah, Jota was born in Porto in December of 1996 and started his career at his local club, Pacos de Ferreira, before he moved to Atletico. A loan move to Porto came before he made a name for himself at Wolves, initially on a loan before making the signing permanent. He was a major reason that they were promoted and continued to excel in the Premier League before Liverpool signed him, where he established himself as a vital member of that incredibly successful team.
Yeah, and in terms of his honours as a player, which is nowhere near as significant as he was as a person, of course, but as a player with Wolves, when he signed there in the Championship and he won the Championship with Wolves, that was the 2017-2018 season. As for with Liverpool, he won the Premier League just a few months ago. He won the FA Cup in 2022, the EFL Cup in the same year as well. Here he is, lifting the Premier League trophy just back in May. And as for Portugal, he's won the UEFA Nations League twice. I said how he'd won it earlier on this summer. He also won it back in 2019 as well. Yeah, we have a statement actually which has come from Zamora Provincial Council. Zamora is a place in Spain quite near the border to his native Portugal. We have got a statement that we can read out from them, because this is where we understand he passed away.
Yeah, the statement says this: 2 young people died in an accident on the A52 Palacios de Sanabria. The Rio Negro del Puente fire station, northern zone of the consortium, responded. The vehicle caught fire and the flames spread to the vegetation. They were 28 and 26 years old, RIP. So that's confirmation of both Diogo Jota and his brother, Andre Silva.
Yeah, Andre Silva, also a professional footballer, by the way. He was playing at Penafiel in the 2nd division out in Portugal, so even more tragic. Diogo Jota has passed away at the same time as his brother, Andre Silva, also a professional footballer.
Incredibly sad news this morning. Gary Neville has posted a tribute on X saying this is heartbreaking news on Diogo Jota and his brother. All my love and best wishes to his family.
Yeah, we're waiting to get any more statements from the likes of Liverpool and Wolves as well, which this is all breaking news. This has just come into us here at Sky Sports News, the most tragic news possible, of course, because Diogo Jota only 28 years old, and here we are. You said that he was married only last month. Here's a picture of his wedding day, such a happy day. He married his long-term partner. It was actually 11 days ago. It was the 22nd of June. And this is the picture that they posted on their wedding day. Remember, he doesn't just leave behind his wife, 3 children as well.
Yeah, Henry Winter has also posted a tribute to Diogo Jota, saying desperate news about Diogo Jota and his brother Andre Silva. Shocking, tragic and unimaginable, the grief of their families and friends. Thoughts with them at this heartbreaking time. RIP. As we've mentioned, this is news that has just been confirmed to us in the last few minutes, that Liverpool forward Diogo Jota has died in a car crash, aged 28, along with his brother, fellow footballer Andre Silva, aged 26. This happened out in Spain in the very early hours of this morning.
Yeah, we did receive this confirmation. We were aware of these reports, but we got it confirmed not so long ago by the Guardia Civil in Zamora, which is the place where the accident took place. And like we said, he was 28 years old. He's been in England since 2017. He came from Atletico Madrid to Wolves. That's how he came over to England and won the championship with Wolves. Joined Liverpool in 2020 after a very successful time at Molineux. And we all know his footballing ability. He was a key player for Liverpool in terms of his honours there, FA Cup, League Cup, and only a couple of months ago, the Premier League.
And as well, he had 49 caps for Portugal. He was part of that Portuguese squad that won the Nations League this summer. 190 Premier League appearances, scoring 63 goals. But of course, all of that pales in comparison to the fact that he was a man who was married to the love of his life only last month, to the mother of his 3 children.
Yeah, he ingratiated himself to those Liverpool fans very, very quickly, because he scored 8 minutes into his Liverpool debut, and he was a brilliant player for them. They won't care about that right now, because his teammates, they're now losing one of their friends rather than thinking about him as a footballer. He was a brilliant footballer, could play all across the front three, was a goal threat. He worked very, very hard. I'd imagine he was the ideal teammate. And they're some of his friends now. They will be mourning his loss. And our thoughts are with especially his family, his wife and his kids, his wider family, but also everyone at Liverpool, everyone connected with Liverpool and Wolves. Of course, he's got his Portuguese national teammates as well.
We've also had a statement in from the Portuguese FA. The Portuguese Football Federation and all of Portuguese football are utterly devastated by the deaths of Diogo Jota and his brother Andre Silva this morning in Spain. Far beyond being an exceptional player with nearly 50 caps for the national team, Diogo Jota was an extraordinary person, respected by all teammates and opponents, someone with a contagious joy and a reference within his own community. On my behalf and on behalf of the Portuguese Football Federation, I express our deepest condolences to the family and friends of Diogo and Andre Silva, as well as to Liverpool FC and FC Midfield, the clubs where the players respectfully performed. The Portuguese Football Federation has already requested UEFA to observe a minute of silence this Thursday before our national team's match against Spain in the Women's European Championship. We have lost 2 champions. The passing of Diogo and Andre Silva represents irreparable losses for Portuguese football, and we will do everything to honour their legacy daily.
Yeah,
so that's a statement in from the Portuguese Football Federation.
Yeah, and we've actually got another statement coming in, news coming into us all the time about this, as you can understand. Reaction, I should say, coming into this very sad news all the time. We've got Napoli have posted their condolences. The president, Aurelio De Laurentiis, and Mr. Antonio Conte, of course, the directors and the technical staff, the team and the entire of the Napoli football club have expressed their deepest condolences and sadness for the sudden passing of Diogo Jota, expressing their deepest sympathy to his family and all at Liverpool.
So just a reminder then of that breaking news that has been confirmed to us here this morning, that Liverpool forward Diogo Jota has died in a car crash in Spain. And there's also reports as well that the Guardia Civil out in Spain have confirmed that there was another young man in the car with him, his brother Andre Silva, also a footballer playing out in Portugal.
Yeah, we got the confirmation from the Zamora Provincial Council. I'll just recap, because anyone just joining us and will be very shocked and hurt by what you're seeing on your screens right now. But we've got the statement here that we were given to us just a few moments ago to confirm this very sad news. They said 2 young people died in an accident on the A52. And the local fire station responded. The vehicle caught fire and the flames spread to the vegetation. They were 28 and 26 years old. That was Diogo Jota and his brother, Andre Silva, who was also a footballer playing for Penafiel in the second tier of Portuguese football.
We've had a post on X from Porto. Diogo Jota spent a year on loan at Porto. They've had this to say: Football Club de Porto is in mourning. It is with shock and deep regret that we send our most sincere condolences to the family and friends of Diogo Jota and his brother Andre Silva, who was also our youth player. May they rest in peace. And I think that shock and deep regret is a feeling that will be reflected across not just football but more widely this morning at this deeply heartbreaking news that Diogo Jota and his brother have passed away in a car crash in Spain the early hours of this morning.
International and Liverpool forward Diogo Jota. Well, the Liverpool manager Arne Slot has issued a statement through the club's website speaking of his sadness at the loss of Jota. He said, "What to say? What can anyone say at a time like this when the shock and the pain is so incredibly raw? I wish I had the words, but I know I do not. All I have are feelings that I know so many people will share about a person and a player we love dearly and a family we care so much about. My first thoughts are not those of a football manager. They are of a father, a son, a brother and an uncle, and they belong to the family of Diogo and Andre Silva, who have experienced such an unimaginable loss. My message to them is very clear. You will never walk alone. The players, the staff, the supporters of Liverpool Football Club are all with you. And from what I have seen today, the same can be said of the wider family of football." Well, Slot closed by saying, "When the time is right, we will celebrate Diogo Jota. We will remember his goals and we will sing his song. For the time being, we will remember him as a unique human being and mourn his loss. We will never be forgotten. His name is Diogo."
Diogo Jota and his brother Andre Silva in their hometown of Gondomar, near Porto. The brothers died yesterday in a car accident in Spain. Jota married his long-term partner, Ruta Cardoso, less than 2 weeks ago. She arrived at the Chapel of the Resurrection as huge crowds gathered outside. The Portuguese Prime Minister, Luis Montenegro, was also in attendance, along with Jota's agent, Jorge Mendes. The brothers' funeral will be held tomorrow morning. Mourners queued for hours outside the chapel to pay their respects to the brothers, who both grew up and began their footballing journey in Gondomar. The club's academy is named after Jota. He played at Gondomar from the age of 9 to 17. The club's president said he had spoken on the phone with Jota just hours before his death, and they spoke almost every week. Former Chelsea and Tottenham manager Andre Villas-Boas was also amongst those attending this afternoon's wake. He is now the president of Porto, where Jota spent a season on loan before joining Wolves. Villas-Boas worked with Jota's brother Andre Silva and knew both.
These boys represented a lot to a lot of people, not only in Porto, in Gondomar, but also Liverpool, Passos de Ferreira. So people had a lot of love and respect from their land, from their population, from the Portuguese people, from the Portistas, from the FC Porto. André was born in our youth academies, and he spent 7 years there. So we have a lot of memories from him. Cherished him a lot. Diogo, of course, had one lightning year in FC Porto before he went to Wolverhampton, and is cherished in our hearts as well. So very painful and tragic moment. So we pay our respects to the families and of course to the clubs that these boys represented. To Liverpool as well, of course, for all that Diogo meant to the Liverpool family, and hope sincerely that the family can grab the good memories out of these boys and take them to eternity.
People also gathered to continue to gather at Anfield today to pay their respects to Jota, who spent 5 years with Liverpool. Our reporter Sani Runjavahala has been there throughout the day.
Well, fans, not just Liverpool fans, but football fans from across this city and beyond have been paying their tributes across the day here for Diogo Jota and his brother Andre Silva. If you look at the tributes, which, by the way, line the entire length of the main stand, it's over 100 metres of tributes with flowers and messages. If you look at them, there's messages from little children as young as 6 and 7 who've taken the time to write a message of condolence for the hero in Diogo Jota. Today as well, we've seen former captain and former teammate of Jota, Jordan Henderson, take a moment to pay his respects. He signed a book of condolence that Liverpool have open here, and then laid some flowers and wrapped a scarf around them and had a moment to himself when you could see he was visibly very upset to have to be doing what he was doing. Clearly someone who went beyond that and was a good friend to Henderson. We've had Everton as well pay their tributes to Ian Snowden, the former left-back and club ambassador, together with two compatriots of Andre Silva and Diogo Jota in Youssef Chermiti and fellow striker Beto from Everton pay their respects too, and Everton with a wreath saying our city is united in grief. The book of condolence that I mentioned there's a digital copy that you can sign wherever you are in the world, and also a physical one that's going to be open for supporters to sign at the club here as well. So that's one way that the club are marking the passing of Diogo Jota. They say the number 20 shirt which he wore is going to be immortalised in some capacity, and in addition to that as well, the LFC Foundation, led by Chris Kirkland, who was there representing them, lay flowers here at the scene today. It's been a reflective scene, supporters making their way over here, and they will be throughout the evening as well here at Liverpool, where supporters have been paying their respects here at Anfield.
Well, as fans take time to pay tribute to Jota, so do his teammates, with Mo Salah describing the news as extremely hard to accept. Salah shared this message: "I am truly lost for words. Until yesterday, I never thought there would be something that would frighten me of going back to Liverpool after the break. Teammates come and go, but not like this. It's going to be extremely difficult to accept that Diogo won't be there when we go back. My thoughts are with his wife, his children, and of course his parents, who suddenly lost their children. Those close to Diogo and his brother Andre need all the support they can get. They will never be forgotten. Conor Bradley posted about playing FIFA with Jota, who was an excellent video game player. Bradley said, "By half-time, I'm pretty sure I was 5-0 down. That was the last time I was ever falling into that trap. When I first moved up from the academy, you were always there for me and helped me settle in with the lads, which I'll be forever grateful for. Love you, Jots, and I'm sure we will meet again." Robin Kelleher, who's just left Liverpool to join Brentford, said, "You became one of my closest friends in football. We bonded over all things sports, watching any football match we could find, often your brother Andre's game. I was surprised a lad from Portugal loved sports such as darts, snooker and horse racing so much. Some of my best memories were having a laugh watching them with you. You were such a fun, genuine, normal and down-to-earth and loving family man, and always very competitive. I'm going to miss our pre-match programme quiz. Love you, Diogo."
Liverpool forward Diogo Jota has died in a road traffic accident in Spain. He was 28 years old. These are the very latest tributes being paid at Anfield, where Jota played a key role in the club's Premier League title win last season. Local police in the city of Zamora in the northwest of Spain have confirmed that the accident happened at 12:30 this morning and Jota passed away along with his brother Andre. Former Liverpool boss Jurgen Klopp, who signed Diogo Jota, has paid tribute on Instagram in the last hour. He wrote, "This is a moment where I struggle. There must be a bigger purpose, but I can't see it. I'm heartbroken to hear about the passing of Diogo and his brother Andre. Diogo was not only a fantastic player, but also a great friend, a loving and caring husband and father. We will miss you so much. All my prayers, thoughts and power to Ruta, the kids, the family, the friends and everyone who loved them. Rest in peace. Love, Jay." And just in the last few minutes, we've had a statement from Gestifute, Diogo Jota's representatives, and it says this: "The loss of Diogo Jota is irreparable. The brutal and tragic accident that claimed his life in Zamora, as well as that of his brother Andre Silva, who was travelling with him back to England, left George Mendes and Gestifute in shock and completely devastated. Diogo Jota was only 28 years old and had his whole life ahead of him. He was a top-quality footballer and an exceptional professional, but he was much more than that. He was an exemplary son, a devoted husband, and a loving and dedicated father. Those who knew him well know he was also a unique friend with an extraordinary human being. Those we love will never disappear as long as they live on in our hearts, and Diogo will never be forgotten. He is part of our family, part of the history of Gestifute, and part of world football. He was taken from us too soon, but he will always be in our hearts, as he is one of us, a friend whom we will never forget. Gestifute sends its deepest condolences to his beloved friends and family, especially his parents, Joaquim Silva and Isabel Silva, who have lost 2 sons. To his wife, Ruta Cardoso, who has lost her partner and the love of her life, and the couple's 3 children, Denise, Duarte and Mafalda, who are still so young." And the Prince of Wales, Prince William, has just sent out a tribute on social media saying, "As part of the footballing family, I am deeply saddened to hear of the passing of Diogo Jota and his brother. Our thoughts are with his family, friends, and all who knew him." And the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, has also paid his respects to Diogo Jota and Andre Silva. Here he is earlier today speaking at an event in London.
This is devastating news, and I'm sure I speak for everyone in saying our first thoughts are going to be with his family and his friends in particular. But there are millions of Liverpool fans, but also football fans, non-fans, who will also be shocked by this. I think Liverpool Football Club have just put a statement out, as I understand it, but it is devastating, and it is really important that we bear in mind just how difficult a period this will be for his friends and for his family.
OK, we can head back to Anfield now and rejoin our reporter Ben Ransom. Ben, can you tell us a bit more about what happened?
Yeah, we're starting to build a picture now of what did happen overnight in this tragic accident, and that's the way that the Spanish police have reported it. Essentially, Diogo Jota and his younger brother Andres Silva were travelling in a Lamborghini last night in a region close to Zamora in the northwest of Spain, just north of the Portuguese border. Now, as far as police understand, it looks as though one of the tyres on the car exploded for whatever reason as they were overtaking. That caused the car to veer off the road, and tragically both Diogo Jota and his brother were killed at the scene. Reports began to emerge at around 12:30 in the morning, and obviously we woke up to the news as it was confirmed this morning here in the UK that tragically both those two young footballers, because they were relatively young, weren't they? Diogo Jota would have been coming in towards the peak of his powers as a footballer at 28 years old. His brother was just 26, who played in the second tier in Portugal. They'd spent time together previously at FC Porto. In the same squad. Obviously Diogo, a more senior player than his younger brother in the academy, but obviously this is a footballing family, and this is a wider family now having to come to terms with the loss, a mum and dad who are having to come to terms with the loss of two sons.
Just behind you we can see quite a few tributes. So how are the people paying their respects there at Anfield?
Well, as you can imagine, it's been a constant stream of not just Liverpool fans, but fans of different clubs coming here to Anfield, wanting to pay their respects, just to take time to reflect. Remember Diogo Jota, not just his playing career, but also Diogo Jota, the person as well, because again, it really does pain me to say Liverpool FC is a football club in mourning today. The club themselves have put out a statement confirming the news, and this is what they said a couple of hours ago. They said that Liverpool Football Club are devastated by the tragic passing of Diogo Jota. The club have been informed the 28-year-old has passed away following a road traffic accident in Spain along with his brother Andre. Liverpool FC will be making no further comment at this time and request the privacy of Diogo and Andre's family, friends, teammates and club staff is respected as they try to come to terms with an unimaginable loss. We will continue to provide them with our full support, and I think that it's that word unimaginable. That's the way many supporters will have felt this morning when they saw news begin to emerge after 9 o'clock this morning, and then as it was confirmed by the authorities in Spain, and that has led to so many wanting to come here and just share their memories of a fantastic player, not just here at Liverpool but also at Wolves as well, the team that brought him to England under Nuno Espirito Santo in the Championship as they were then. He moved from the Champions League to the Championship and helped Wolves win promotion. This is a player that will be fondly remembered in two communities, those here in Liverpool but also in Wolverhampton as well.
What can you say? He graced both teams. He was a tremendous servant for both teams, and the fans up here realise what we are. We miss him. We missed him the year he went. We missed him the year after. We still miss him.
Sad, very sad. Emotion, was a good player, we will miss him. Yeah, he just got married, and the kids. Sad.
Unbelievable. It's awful, absolutely awful. I mean, this morning when my phone was going off, what's all these messages, and then, like thousands of us, we all found out what the sad news. It's just shocking. It's 28, not long got married, young man, wife and family. It's just awful. Awful. Everything ahead of him at 28, it's just, you can't take it all out, you can't take it in. It's just unbelievable.
It was like he was one of us. He was like he was a scouser, you know what I mean? He was sad, just so sad.
I cried. I didn't know what to do.
it's horrible. Yeah.
And today, coming out to pay your respects, why was it important to come to Anfield?
I've been a fan since I was probably like 4 or 5 years old, and it's my whole life, and I had to. It wouldn't feel right if I didn't.
Unbelievable, very good player also. We love him.
Sad day.
Diego is Liverpool.
Yeah. Diego is Liverpool.
Just a sense there of some of the conversations that I've had with supporters that they're having amongst themselves, and there are a number of tributes. The number of flowers, the number of scarves that have been brought here has grown over the last few hours. We've seen many emotive signs and motives put down with them. There's been fans of different clubs turning up. Manchester United scarves, for example, are there amongst Everton shirts, all amongst the Liverpool tributes too. And we heard from Keir Starmer, didn't we, a little bit earlier on, while the Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner, she arrived here as well a couple of hours ago. She was in Liverpool. She joined the Liverpool City Region Mayor Steve Rotherham as they came to lay some flowers in memory of Diogo Jota. This is obviously a footballer who has touched so many here in Liverpool and across Europe as well, with his role in the Portuguese national team. 49 caps he won for his country, an incredibly popular person. But I think it's the fact that he was taken from us at just 28 years old that has really shocked so many. And Angela Rayner, the Deputy Prime Minister, gave us a few brief words after she laid her tribute here at Anfield.
To Diego and his brother, and especially given he's recently married, he's got 3 very young children, and I think the whole world actually is really devastated and shocked by such a tragic end to, someone who is well loved here in Liverpool, and I think the whole city is there to support his wife and children and his family.
It's just such a tragedy, isn't it? Only 28 years old, he literally only got married less than 2 weeks ago. Just absolute shocking.
It's heartbreaking. It is absolutely heartbreaking, and just shows how life events can change really quickly. And I'm absolutely devastated for his wife and his children and his family. I can't imagine what they're going through at the moment. My son's 28, and it just, it's really shocking.
And you speak to people here, and he was like a family member, for Liverpool fans, but not only shocked Liverpool fans, but football fans across the world.
Yeah, his life and his career only just started. He's done an incredible job here at Liverpool Football Club. One of their greatest strikers, and just getting married, having his young children, looking forward to all the great things that he was going to do here and in his life. And it's just so heartbreaking and devastating for people who have woke up to the news this morning, and it's hard. I came here for local government conference, and then just to hear that sad news, and then I've been here and I've been over at Everton today, and just seeing the outpouring across the whole of the city is it's incredible. But our condolences are, and our thoughts today primarily are with Diego's family, his wife and his children.
Yeah, it is a city once again having to deal with tragedy. If I just step out of the way, you can see the latest scenes of fans who are continuing to pay their respects, their tributes to remember Diogo Jota. We've seen plenty who have been in tears, overwhelmed by emotion, because as much as many of these fans, many of these Liverpudlians will not have perhaps even ever got to meet Diogo Jota personally, that connection that football has with supporters, the moments of incredible joy that inspire passions and memories that live on for a lifetime, are things that are being shared amongst these supporters as they talk to each other and take this time to reflect on a player that has been lost but will certainly never be forgotten.
For now, thank you, Ben. Fans have also been gathering at Molineux to pay their respects, and Rob Jones is there for us as well. Rob, it wasn't just the Liverpool fans who loved him.
Absolutely not, Matt. No, he was massively adored by Wolverhampton Wanderers supporters, and that is clear because the tributes that are being collected under the statue of Billy Wright here at Molineux are expanding very quickly. Indeed, some of the more recent ones, this beautiful golden love heart, which was delivered actually by a local florist 10-15 minutes or so ago with the message, Jota, you'll always be a wolf. And Ben was also just talking there about the moments that you share, the moments of great joy that these brilliant footballers deliver for the supporters. And I think that's particularly significant for young football fans. And one young fan has been here today to lay some flowers, but within the bunch of flowers that has been delivered, there is a picture of him and Diogo Jota clearly outside the Wolves training ground one day as Jota was making his way out of a session. And sometimes I think probably everyone watching will remember little snapshots of when you meet your heroes of the club that you support as a kid, and you might only get 30 seconds with a player like Diogo Jota as a young Wolves fan, but you remember it forever. You go to school and you're talking about it the next day. Whatever he might say to you, those moments stay with you, and so much of what Diogo Jota helped deliver at Wolverhampton Wanderers will stay with supporters of all ages who watched him at Molineux, because he was part of an era that delivered Wolves back to the top table of English football. There had been some difficult seasons for Wolverhampton Wanderers before Diogo Jota arrived. There's a little bit of a Portuguese revolution in the 2017-18 season under Nuno Espirito Santo. Jota was Wolves' top scorer as they were promoted back to the Premier League. They won the championship with 99 points. Jota and Ruben Neves were the two big stars of that Wolves team. They went on to finish 7th in back-to-back campaigns. Jota scored their first goal back in European football in the Europa League in almost 40 years as well. But there are those snapshots, those, well, old gold moments that will always be remembered by Wolves supporters. Hat-trick against Leicester, a very famous goal in an FA Cup quarter-final here in March 2019 against Manchester United. People have spoken a lot about Jota's ability as a dribbler. Well, that day, dancing past Luke Shaw to score a goal that took them to the semi-finals at Wembley. Some Wolves fans saying, well, that's the only time I've ever been to Wembley as a Wolves supporter. But not just a player of great ability, a dribbler, a good finisher, a poacher, but also a fighter, a terrier. He pressed, he harried, he tackled, he went up against players who were probably better physically than him, but banged into them. Sometimes he would risk injury doing so, but that was the sort of player that Diogo Jota was. And that is why so many Wolves supporters have been here today to pay tribute and to remember the great impact that he had during his time at Molineux.
He pulled us up from being mid-table championship obscurity to on the brink of a European trophy, back-to-back hat-tricks in Europe. The way he took us to a semi-final in the FA Cup, like it's the first time I've ever been to Wembley as a Wolves fan, and he was a massive part of that. It's absolutely devastating news.
When he left, we knew he was going on to bigger and better things, and he was going to go and achieve what he has done, and he would have achieved even more. There's no doubt about that. And I always hoped one day he'd come back here and we'd see him playing again, like in a gold shirt. So it's just really, really devastating news.
This is gonna carry on for weeks and days and things like that. I mean, I've been looking on social media and people are saying, you know, can we connect with Liverpool fans when we play them? Is there any way we can connect together? I've seen the pitch outside Anfield, and you know, there's Everton shirts which are laying outside Anfield. It's one of those moments where the football kind of stops, but the football world all comes together. It's more of a human issue, but it's really shocking, really sad. But there's so many memories that he'll always be remembered for.
Fans have had to say to you, Rob, but some of his former teammates have also paid their respects.
They have, yeah. It was very interesting hearing Ben speak about his time as a Liverpool player up at Anfield and covering Liverpool a lot over the last 8-9 years or so, even thinking in the team that he was part of, and some of the forwards we've seen in the last few years at Liverpool, the likes of Mo Salah, Sadio Mane, Roberto Firmino. You still always felt, even talking to ex-players on certain days, that if there was a chance to fall in the last few minutes, if it dropped in the box to anyone, even at Liverpool, you would still want it to be Diogo Jota. That opportunity would fall to. I remember speaking to his former manager, Nuno Espirito Santo, who signed him here at Wolves. The day that he went to Liverpool and officially became a Liverpool player, they were Premier League champions. When he joined them in 2020, he sadly passes away with them as Premier League champions again, having helped them to title number 20. But Nuno spoke that day with a tone of almost a father who was losing a son as part of his squad. That Nuno always speaks wherever he is, whether it's Wolves, whether it's now at Nottingham Forest, about creating an environment, and he always felt that Diogo Jota was a big part of that environment because he was a big player, he scored important goals, but he also did his bit for the team as well, a team that was full of super important players. Raul Jimenez, one of them, who says it's hard receiving this type of news, and I still can't believe it. A great teammate, friend, and above all, and this is the most important part, a great father, because what we'll see on social media is a lot of clips of the goals that Diogo Jota scored for Wolves and for Liverpool and for Portugal, who he helped to the Nations League very recently. What we won't see is the clips and the videos of him being a brilliant dad and spending time with his 3 kids. We have seen the pictures of him getting married just 10 days ago to his childhood sweetheart, and it seems so desperately sad that that marriage won't last too long at all. But the memories will last, and that's why it's probably poignant and significant to leave you with the very short message from his former teammate here at Wolves, Ruben Neves. So they say we only lose people when we forget them. I will never forget you. His teammates won't, staff won't, and all the supporters here at Molineux will never forget Diogo Jota.
Thank you very much, Rob. OK, well, some of Jota's former teammates are playing out at the Club World Cup in the United States. Let's speak to Kaveh Solokul, who is out there. Kaveh, what have FIFA said today about his passing?
Yes, in the last few minutes, we've had a statement from the FIFA president, Gianni Infantino, and he says, "I'm deeply saddened to hear of the tragic passing of Diogo Jota and his brother Andre Silva. Aged just 28, Diego had enjoyed a fantastic career to date and had many great years ahead of him, while his brother Andre was thriving at FC Penafiel. They will both be so sorely missed by all those who knew them and by the worldwide football community. On behalf of FIFA and the wider football family, my thoughts are with their family and friends, as well as everyone at Liverpool FC, FC Penafiel and the Portuguese Football Federation. May they rest in peace."
It's the Club World Cup quarter-finals tomorrow, and a number of Jota's former teammates will no doubt be wanting to pay tribute.
Yes, at least 3 of his former teammates are still out here in the US playing in the Club World Cup. Players like Ruben Neves, we just heard from Rob Jones there what Ruben Neves has posted on social media. Also Trent Alexander-Arnold, his former Liverpool teammate, who's now with Real Madrid. Real Madrid are in Miami at the moment, but they're playing in New York on Saturday. And of course, Pedro Neto, who played with him for Portugal and also at Wolves. Pedro Neto at the moment is with Chelsea in Miami. They will be flying to Philadelphia here later today because they're playing Palmeiras in the quarterfinals tomorrow. And Chelsea have also posted a message on social media. They say everyone at Chelsea FC is devastated to learn of the tragic passing of Diogo Jota and his brother Andre. Our thoughts go out to their family, friends, and all at Liverpool FC at this incredibly difficult time.
Thank you for the time being, Kaveh. Now, Liverpool legend Sir Kenny Dalglish has paid his tributes. He has said, "Football is not important at this sad time. You feel helpless, knowing there's so little we can do to ease the pain for his wife of just 2 weeks and his 3 beautiful children. Thinking and praying for all their loved ones after the devastating loss of both Diogo and Andre. You'll never walk alone."
To us today, I mean, so difficult to know really what to ask you and what you even say in this situation. I imagine when you heard the news, it was just utter disbelief.
Yeah, just in a state of shock, really. I think not just with anyone associated to sort of Liverpool, but I think football in general. It is a time, one of the few times probably when we all come together, the football family really, and just cannot believe it. The news today, so sad for everybody involved, but especially his family and his wife, and obviously, the 3 wonderful children that they've got. Devastating for all involved, of course, yeah.
A lot of us know what he brought the footballing world, but what was he like as a person, Jamie?
Well, I mean, in the role now, obviously, I'm associated with the club for playing in the past, but I mean, I don't know the the current players particularly well, so I won't pretend to know Diogo, as I said, particularly well. But he lived really close to us. He was only basically a few hundred yards around the corner from us, but kept himself to himself. He came across as probably not the typical way that maybe some people portray Premier League footballers. He seemed very quiet, very humble, real family man. Went about his business, did his business on the pitch, very quiet, as I said, and humble off the pitch, and just seemed like a really great guy, great footballer. But at the moment it's not really about that. So it is really difficult to find the words of what to say about him. But I think more importantly right now, it's not really about the football or Liverpool, if you like. It's about certainly his family right now, and what probably his parents are going through, and his lovely wife and 3 lovely kids.
Yeah, and they are at the front and heart of everything, really. Thoughts with his wife. He was married just less than 2 weeks ago. His 3 very young children as well, and of course parents who've lost 2 sons. He passed away in that car crash alongside his brother. So of course we think of him as a family first. A family man first, but as a footballer, and what I guess he meant to the fans as well. We're seeing a lot of them lay wreaths and flowers. They're hearing the news, and down at Anfield, it's eerily quiet round there. It's unfortunately a club that has suffered imaginable tragedy over the years as well, and have now lost one of their own at just 28 years old. And you can't imagine what the fans must be feeling.
Yeah, listen, as I said before, I don't think it's just Liverpool fans. They will feel a little bit more maybe than others, understandably so. But I think the whole of football comes together in situations like that. And you just think of it, as I said, that, the summer that he's had, he's probably going into the prime of his career. He's just won, the league title with Liverpool, the Nations League of Portugal. He's married 2 weeks ago. And I think it probably just shows us all, doesn't it, how quickly life can change. And you think what a summer he's had, what a time he's had, him and his family. Then you get this devastating news that his parents, his wife, friends and family have had in the last sort of few hours or so. You can't even comprehend it really, and it probably makes us all step back a little bit, and take things in about how important or how unimportant certain things have. Maybe football in itself is really, and we all get, at times, myself included, we get passionate about the game, we get heated about the game, but at times like this you just think, why, what for? When you think of this, what's happened to him, what it's going to mean for the people around him.
And of course they'll begin the defence of their Premier League title without him in their side, having celebrated that, of course, last season. They'll have that opening game on Sky, which will become a very, very different match altogether, I'm sure. A huge match where big tributes will be paid for him.
Well, yeah, and we'll build it up, and rightly so, Sky Sports, in terms of the start of the new Premier League season, and we get excited because we love football and that. But I think for everybody in the game, certainly in England and the Premier League, I think that that weekend, or certainly the Liverpool game on the Friday night, will be about Diogo Jota, not so much about whether Liverpool get the 3 points or not. It'll be a huge outpouring of emotion, and rightly so, because you mentioned the supporters before, but you think of the players. He's been at the club now, I think, probably 5 or 6 years. The relationships he'll have with those players, how those players will feel today, and what those group of players have done really for Liverpool over the last sort of 6 or 7 years. The memories they will have had together, and what they've given to those supporters and the joy they've given to him. So I didn't know Diogo particularly well, to be honest, but I'm sort of in a state of shock and devastated today. So I can only imagine how his teammates feel for sort of, Liverpool and Portugal right now. They must be, just in a world of pain with his friends and family.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure, Liverpool Football Club will do everything to support the staff at the club affected by it, the people he worked in and around at the training ground and on match days, but particularly his teammates as well, because they'll be returning from holidays, you'd imagine, as well, coming back to Liverpool, and I guess coming together as a unit. And yes, they'll be devastated about this, but you'd imagine it would bring them together, Jamie, in a very different way.
Yeah, and listen, whatever way the players deal with it, they'll all deal with it differently, as will the staff and the club. But I'm sure when Liverpool get back to playing football, I would imagine would be a feeling within the club in the dressing room. Let's do certain things for our mate, really, who's done so much to help us, whether that was on the pitch with the football club or off the pitch, in terms of relationships with other players, or the relationships with families, with other families as well. It's a big part, especially when foreign players come over to this country. At times they're isolated, they're on their own, and they have to mix really well to help each other sort of get through it. They don't maybe have as many friends and family around them as maybe someone like myself did when I was playing. So I can imagine this is going to really hit his teammates really tough. But I'm sure those players and the football club will come together and try and make season or whatever it will be in the future. And always think of their mate Diogo.
Jamie, look, it really is hard to know what to say, isn't it? We really appreciate you spending the time on this truly tragic day. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
His number 10 shirt has gone to Matheus Cunha for the new season. They also cover Red Bull boss Christian Horner, saying there's a plan for the post-Max Verstappen era. But we will start with the story that features prominently in the Telegraph, who are reporting that the Liverpool squad will travel to Portugal and attend the funeral of their teammate Diogo Jota. Mark, we heard, or we saw, I suppose, a lot of statements on social media yesterday of those who know Diogo Jota paying tribute to him. What we saw on Friday, I guess, is the impact it has. You're there for the Club World Cup, Al Hilal playing on Friday evening, and you've seen the likes of Ruben Neves and Joao Cancelo who played with him. Well, Ruben Neves, both club and country, but Cancelo for country, visibly emotional. This is what it means to two people who obviously knew him incredibly well.
Yeah, and obviously on Saturday we've got Trent Alexander-Arnold, who was very close to Jota playing for Real Madrid, and it's just unspeakable, isn't it? I don't think any of us can find words for what's happened the last 48 hours. And when the Liverpool players meet up tomorrow to fly to Portugal, I mean, they may fly tonight, I'm not sure what the timings are, but it'll be the first time they've seen each other since the end of last season, and they'll all come together earlier than they expected for this absolute tragedy. And, they'll all want to be there. They're a very close-knit squad at Liverpool. And I just want to also say as well, the players have been really hit by this, but also members of staff at the club who were very close to Jota as well. Again, I found it very difficult. It's fans, it's players, it's the ordinary people that worked at Liverpool that saw him as a very normal, very kind of down-to-earth lad, not just a footballer, it's just someone that they would recognise as being normal. So it's hit everybody, and obviously the situation as well with the fact that, that his marriage recently, his young children, it's just an absolute tragedy. He has so much to live for, and the players who all spoke so highly of him have got to gather tomorrow for what's just going to be an awful event in Portugal, really. The funeral of a young player who should be reporting back for pre-season training on Monday, but unfortunately this situation is as it is.
For the player and for the club, Ian, it seems to me that the contrast, which feels so tragic, as just touched on, within the last month, he's won a Premier League title with his club, he's won the Nations League with his country, he's got married, and now all of that is gone within such a short space of time, and that the ecstasy and that joy to change to this so quickly is just so difficult to comprehend.
Yeah, I think one of the things that this story speaks to is the closeness and the bond that develops between teams of sportsmen and sportswomen. These guys are more than just work colleagues. They work together every day, but they travel together, they eat together, they even room together. On some occasions, they spend time on buses, on planes, in dressing rooms, on training grounds. A lot of the foreign guys spend a lot of time with each other away from the club as well, because obviously they don't have such a wide social circle. So I think we shouldn't underestimate the bond that exists between these guys, and this is the manifestation of that we witness now. We witness real pain, real feelings, real grief, real shock, and what we will see over the days and weeks to come is that it'll also take time for these guys to move on from this. I mean, it's impossibly difficult because every time Liverpool report for training, as they were supposed to do on Monday, I know that's now been delayed, but every time they turn up for training, which as the season starts and goes on, there'll be somebody missing. There'll be a shirt that isn't on the peg, and it's impossible to work out and exactly and imagine how exactly that will feel for them. Football is a very modern sport these days, so these players will get all the help that they need psychologically and emotionally. They'll be given the time. And tomorrow, I guess, is the first step on what will be a really, really long and difficult journey for these players, and as Mark says, other staff members at the club, and for the manager Arne Slot, and of course for supporters. And this will not be a quick process. This will be a slow and very painful and very public process.
Did you find it surprising, Mark, that those Portuguese players did play in that Club World Cup game, because they would be completely within their rights to say, I actually don't want to do this at the moment?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we spoke to Enzo Maresca in Philadelphia last night, and he said, Pedro and Neto had missed training yesterday, and he said whether he decides to play against Palmeiras is completely up to him. And I imagine the same thoughts are going through a lot of players' minds right now. Like I mentioned Trent earlier on, he might have the similar feelings playing for Real Madrid on Saturday. How do you kind of deal with it? It's so tough, and I imagine for the players as well. It's that flying to the funeral tomorrow. It's it's an intensely personal matter. This situation, their grief is grief, but I guess it's magnified with the family. But this situation in Portugal on Saturday will be played out in front of the world, really, because he was a world famous footballer, and there'll be no privacy. There'll be no ability to mourn in private. It will be a ceremony that lots of fans will want to see as well, because he was so close to them. I flew back from Munich from the Nations League final a couple of weeks ago into Manchester, and Jota was on my flight. And, he was asked by young kids for photographs and autographs. And, we all see footballers, and sometimes it can happen a lot, and they don't want to, they don't want to sign an autograph, or they'll feel a bit aggravated by it. He couldn't do enough. He was signing autographs, chatting to people, having pictures taken, seems such a down-to-earth guy. And that is the person that everyone will be remembering tomorrow, that the players will be saying goodbye to, just a normal guy. And of course, if you're playing this weekend, or even when the season starts, the first game that Liverpool play, it'll be so hard for a lot of players, even 4, 5, 6 weeks down the line. The first Premier League game of the season, some Liverpool players might find it tough, even impossible to play. We don't know how they'll react yet, especially now in the very kind of the hours after it's happened. That who knows what the reactions will be, but it's going to take a long time, like Ian said.
One of those reactions, Ian, is featured very heavily on the back of the Sun, and the words of Mo Salah, who says, until yesterday, I never thought there would be something that would frighten me of going back to Liverpool after the break. Teammates come and go, but not like this. It's going to be extremely difficult to accept that Diogo won't be there when we go back. And it feels a little bit churlish thinking about the impact that might have when Liverpool return to playing games, as to whether it might be something that for want of a better word, inspires them, that they want to have success for their teammate in the coming season, or whether for some of them it will just be too much to try and put themselves through and think about concentrating on playing in particularly the early months of the season.
I mean, they will do it because they're professional, and footballers tend to be, the majority, incredibly strong mentally. They will do it. They will find a way to do it. They will almost see it as a duty and obligation to Diogo to do it. So they will do it. But those words from Mo Salah are very, very powerful indeed. And something that struck me when Mark was just talking there was, you've got to remember that these guys are very young. They're young men. I mean, Salah himself is only 33. He's relatively young, and he's one of the older members of that squad. But there'll be players in that squad who will be experiencing this kind of loss and grief for the very first time because of their age, and that will add another layer of difficulty and complexity to it as they try to comprehend it. when Salah talks there about being scared to come back for pre-season training, I can only imagine what he means is that these guys are incredibly fit athletes. Okay, they're incredibly powerful, strong guys in the prime years of their lives, and to a degree, there's a level of invincibility that is felt by sportsmen and women when they're at the peak of their powers because of the incredible physical condition that they get themselves into, and indeed the mental strength that they have that I've already referenced. And this type of event pierces that and can shatter that. So when someone like Salah talks about being scared to come back, I'd imagine that is what he means, because not only will he be in the early stages of mourning the loss of a friend and a teammate, it will also be, I'm sure, on an almost subconscious level, be forcing him to ask questions of his own mortality in many ways, because events like this make us all stop and think and realise how vulnerable every single one of us really is.
And it is so sad as well, Mark, that Liverpool as a club are one that have had to confront tragedy far too many times in a relatively short spell of time. And you think back to Hillsborough, which obviously is a slightly different scenario, but the players and the team had to carry on playing matches after that season. And I think in retrospect, a lot of those involved, certainly Kenny Dalglish is one of them who have spoken about how difficult it was and how much actually it took out of you without realising it at the time, that you're dealing with grief, but also expected to go and do your job in the glare and the scrutiny of so many.
Oh, yeah, you speak to any of the players involved at the team at Hillsborough who went to so many funerals, that I think that the squad represented every funeral. They're still affected by it now, almost 40 years on. And whatever happens at the funeral this weekend, the players will be affected by it forever. There's no doubt about that. And there'll be moments next season and beyond, trigger moments, where the fans will sing Jota's name inevitably at every game, and it will cause flashbacks and moments and sadness and joy and all sorts of emotions which will never go away. This will never ever go away for Liverpool. A player in the prime of his career, the prime of his life, just gone. It's impossible for it to go away. And I can't think of a similar sporting tragedy like this that's affected a player for a long, long time. There have been players that have lost their life. Laurie Cunningham was an example in the early 80s at Real Madrid player. And there have been others at, Antonio Reyes, who played for Arsenal. But, Jota is in the peak of his career, and he was a guy that everyone saw on their screens every week doing stuff that super athletes do. So that's why it's so hard to comprehend. And next season and beyond, the Liverpool players, Andy Robertson's tribute the other day was very heartfelt. They will feel this forever, and it's just not going to go away quickly.
As you would expect, it is something that has brought the football community together. There was a big picture of Diogo Jota as Oasis begin their comeback tour. A picture of Jota on one of the big screens in Cardiff. Daniel Taylor of The Athletic tweeting that with Oasis in Cardiff tonight. And it was just before the song Live Forever was played. And I'm sure that funeral will be an incredibly emotional and difficult watch in Portugal on Saturday. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have a look at some of the other sports stories in the morning's newspapers. The later version of The Telegraph has reached us that they have made Emma Raducanu's Wimbledon exit their lead. We'll look at a valiant effort from the British number one next. And as promised, we'll also take a look at the story surrounding Marcus Rashford and 4 big-name teammates all looking for a way out of Manchester United. Football writer Mark Ogden and the Daily Mail's football editor Ian Ladyman. Let's focus on a story which is across most of the back pages, it has to be said, for Saturday, that Marcus Rashford headlines a group of 5 Manchester United players who have been banished by Ruben Amorim, the head coach, ahead of the new season. He and Jadon Sancho, Alejandro Garnacho, Anthony and Terrell Malacia as well. Ian Ladyman, no great surprise that any of those 5 don't have a significant future at the club. And I guess financially as well, there is a reason for Ruben Amorim to want rid of them, to try and regenerate the squad and continue building his own team.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a fascinating story, this, and the reason that I see it as being so is that this feels like a real line in the sand moment for Ruben Amorim, the Manchester United coach, a real stick or twist moment, and he's decided to twist. And what I mean by that is that when you've got players who you don't want and they don't want to be around, it's quite easy to hedge your bets and say, well, I'll keep them in the first team pool and I'll use them off the bench occasionally, and I might use them in the League Cup or whatever. And that way, it stops the negative headlines. It prevents that feeling of tension and unrest, and it also gives you a bit of a bigger squad, and it keeps players potentially in the shop window. They might come off the bench and score a goal for you. Amorim has obviously thought, no, that's not the way that I'm going to do this. I think this is a coach who knows that what happens in the first few months of the season will essentially, it'll give him another lease of life, or at United, or will bury him. Because we can't forget the way that last season went. You can't forget where they finished in the league. You can't forget what happened in the Europa League final. If United start badly this season, then that guy is under pressure and probably goes. And so he's obviously thought, if I'm going, then I'm not going to go wondering. I'm going to go on my terms. I'm going to go my way. I'm going to manage my way. These guys don't want to play for me. They tell me they don't want to play for me. They don't behave as though they want to play for me. So they're not playing for me, and they're not playing for me. No matter how badly I might need them on occasion, no matter how badly I might need a deep squad and a deep bench, they are not playing for me. This is my football club, and I will do it my way. It's brave. I admire him for it, but it also carries an element of risk.
To you, Mark, what would be, do you think, the biggest motivating factor for Amorim to want rid of them? Is it that the players don't fit the system? Is it, as Ian just alluded to, that maybe the attitude is not great for some of them? Or is it that some of them are on a lot of wages and they're costing club a lot of money to do not very much?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a combination of all three things you mentioned there, because all players are different. But I do think that ultimately he doesn't want the distraction of being asked by people like us what's happening with Marcus Rashford. Is he going to go on the summer tour to the United States? Is Jadon Sancho going to go on the tour? Is he training with the first team? All these questions which kind of hung over Erik ten Hag last year with Sancho, that he's dealt with that. And I think it is good, strong management. I think United have backed him, but there is a downside to this in the sense that there's 5 players there that United today have just basically cut their value, because everybody that might want to sign these players will know that they are damaged goods, and that United's valuation at 9 o'clock this morning is not the same as at 9 o'clock tonight, because they can't say we want X amount of pounds for Marcus Rashford when they're telling the whole world that he's not part of the plans. So they have a problem there unless they know where these players are going. But I think it also makes it sure as well that in January, I think Marcus Rashford had a couple of options. AC Milan were interested, didn't fancy that, and he basically waited till the end of the window and signed for Aston Villa when it was clear that Barcelona didn't want him. Will Marcus Rashford be prepared to wait as long again when he knows that he's not going to kick a ball again for Man United? It might force the issue, but still I do think that United need to back this up now by getting rid of these players quickly. Otherwise, they'll have a problem in August, late August, when they're still in the books, they're still paying the wages and they can't get rid of them. So they need to move them on fast to prevent it becoming a distraction, which they've done this to avoid it becoming a distraction.
That concept, or that challenge of moving them on fast, again ties in with the finances, doesn't it? That if your option is to go somewhere else, but if you're Jadon Sancho and Marcus Rashford in particular, you might have to take a pay cut. You wonder whether you sit there for as long as possible on your 350 grand a week, or you say to Man United, well, if you want me to go, you can pay the rest of my contract, the differential between whatever my new club's going to offer me and what you're giving me now.
Yeah, without a doubt, somebody's going to have to take a backward step in these negotiations, and the chances are that it'll have to be Manchester United. That's usually the way that it works. I'll just take issue slightly with something that Mark just said there about cutting value, and I absolutely know what he means. United are essentially telling the world that these players are wrong-uns, for want of a better phrase. That's the way they obviously see them. But I don't think they will sell them. I'm not sure they can sell them. I think these will, or the majority of these will have to be loans again, because there aren't that many clubs out there who can go for a transfer fee for a player like Marcus Rashford, who earns the type of money that he earns, and go for the whole package. He's just not that valuable. So, so the chances are that some of these departures will once again be loans, and the whole merry-go-round will start again. United are going to find it desperately difficult to sell these players on the basis of the way they've played in the last couple of years, and just from a pure standpoint of pounds and pence, it does not add up.
Do you think, Mark, that there was ever a temptation, particularly with Rashford, who was good on that loan spell with Aston Villa? Sancho was fine with Chelsea too, to give them a second chance? Or do you think that by the time that particularly Rashford left at the end of January, start of February, that his mind was made up on him, that he was never going to play for Manchester United again?
Yeah, there was no way back for those two. I mean, Sancho had a poor season at Chelsea, and he's never done anything at Man United to warrant being given a third, fourth or fifth chance. And Marcus Rashford, did he do that well at Aston Villa? He scored 2 Premier League goals and a couple in the FA Cup against Preston. So, for a player that earns 325 grand a week, you'd expect more than 4 goals in 6 months. So I don't think Rashford did anything at Aston Villa to convince Ruben Amorim that he was wrong. So I think their future was sealed the moment they left Old Trafford, and there's no way back. And I think it's the same for the other 3 players. I think that the time's up. None of them are good enough for Man United in their current form. So move them on.
Part of the story in the Times, Ian, is that number 10 shirt has gone for Marcus Rashford. It's been handed to Matheus Cunha. I guess the flip side of what we've been talking about, how many more players do you think Manchester United are short of being challengers for, say, a Champions League spot next season?
Goodness me, I mean, anybody that you run into down your local will tell you that they need a centre-forward, a world-class holding midfield player, a goalkeeper, another centre-half, and a wide player.
Good.
And a wide player. Is that enough?
Everything's looking fine then.
Do you want me to go on? And look, Cunha is a fine signing in that he's a fine player. However, at the moment, it does feel a little bit like dropping a goldfish into a pond full of sharks and telling him to swim and make the difference, because one player ain't going to change that team on his own. Okay, so Cunha is a start. He's a start. That's what he is. But he's the first piece in a massive jigsaw puzzle, and there's an awful lot of pieces to put in that puzzle between now and the middle of August.
That's a rousing rallying cry for Manchester United fans to start the new season. That's the reality there.
It is late on a Friday.
Let's finish, Mark, with a bit of Wimbledon and the end of the line for Emma Raducanu, beaten by the top seed Arina Sabalenka, but not before giving an encouraging account of herself.
Absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, she lost in straight sets, but it was the world number 1. She gave it a really good fight, and I was watching this downstairs in the hotel in Philadelphia, and people were stood there watching. It was generating excitement because they thought there was a shock on, and a couple of times it looked like there was. She had a big lead in both sets and didn't hold on to it. But I think it's definitely promising in the sense that she's had her problems over the years. To go so close against the world number 1 is positive for the future. So it was a good night for Raducanu, apart from the result.
Yeah, just very, very briefly, a big day for the Lionesses, Ian Ladyman, as they start their Euros campaign. What chance of retaining their title?
Well, it's desperately difficult, isn't it? They've not been consistently convincing, really, ever since they thrilled us a few years ago at Wembley. So it's a big challenge for Serena and the Lionesses. If I had to put money on it, I'd say no. It's a very difficult job to win away from home. But I'm sure, there've been some big calls made before the tournament starts. I mean, the Mary Earps thing, I think, is still kind of resonating around the world of women's football to a degree. So we wish them well, but the challenge ahead of them is vast, I would say.
Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed. If you missed any of the show, there is always the chance to catch up with Back Pages tonight at hour. And the show is also available as a podcast. Just download Back Pages on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. On the way with us on Sky Sports News, we'll round up all the day's transfer news. A 6-time Premier League champion, Kyle Walker, is heading back to the Premier League and newly promoted Burnley.